Irvy's back! Do you remember episode 46? Do you? Do you really? Well, I do. That was when we played Donkey Kong 94, Stunt Race FX, Mortal Kombat 2, and Sonic & Knuckles. And coming up in episode 47, it'll be Seiken Densetsu 2, aka Secret of Mana. What games did I miss in the middle here? Time to play Mega Man 5. This was the grand finale of the Game Boy Mega Man series. One of the coolest features is that it was optimised for the Super Game Boy adapter, so you could play this on your TV with a special border and preset colours, which is cool. Fifth time around, Capcom decided to buck tradition and toss some originality into the series. The Robot Masters this time are not Dr. Wily's creations, but killer robots from outer space, led by a guy called Terra. No, not you. And he doesn't like Mega Man meddling in his plans. Oh dear. In the intro, Terra tells Mega Man that he's going to make him his slave. Mega Man realises his Mega Buster doesn't work on alien metals, and then Terra knocks him unconscious. Immediately I began imagining a Mega Man game that starts with a daring escape attempt from an alien spacecraft. That would be cool and unexpected. But no. Mega Man regains consciousness and finds out that Dr. Light rescued him. What? What happened to Terra, taking Mega Man as his slave? Oh well, I guess logical plot development isn't what you'd expect from a Mega Man game. So Dr. Light invents something called a Mega Arm, which is just Mega Man shooting his fist towards the baddies. It looks a lot like Hardman's weapon from Mega Man 3, but apparently this has the power to damage the alien robots. Whatever. There's also a brand new character, Tango the Cat. Nyah, listen to that. Sadly, apart from a little subtle cameo in Mega Man 10, poor little Tango hasn't been seen since. And he's not really that useful in this game, but he is cute. But the bosses! This is what sets the Game Boy Mega Man 5 apart from any other games in the series. This is still the only Mega Man game to not feature 8 something mans. Instead, each of the bosses represent a planet in the solar system. A great little novelty that the developers clearly had some fun with. For example, Mercury can actually morph into a blob of mercury. Hilarity! Speaking of which, Mercury has a weapon that actually steals Mega Man's items. He can be found hiding in some kind of warehouse. There's definitely elements of the Dustman stage in this level. Venus is found in a bubble-themed level. Trying to figure out what bubbles have to do with Venus. Nope, can't think of a thing. Anyway, Venus himself somewhat resembles Bubble Crab from Mega Man X2. He jumps around like Toadman, only slower, and shoots slow-moving bubbles at you. Mars is a big tanker war machine. Get it? Mars is the god of war. No, not you. Mars' stage is very mechanical, full of machines ready to take over the world. Jupiter's level has areas of low gravity, like Starman's stage in the original Mega Man 5. Of course, with Jupiter being the biggest planet and having the strongest gravitational pull, this doesn't really make much sense at all, but let's just go with it. Jupiter himself is an electricity-based boss. Saturn makes use of his rings. In that sense, he's a bit like Ringman, but he also has attacks reminiscent of Brightman and Dustman. And his level is a bit like Gravity Man's, in that you have to pay attention to the background and see how the gravity's being affected. The weapon that you get from Saturn is the Black Hole, which, funnily enough, is pretty much exactly the same weapon Mega Man will get from Galaxy Man in Mega Man 9, 14 years later. Uranus is a big, heavy, bull-type robot who likes to channel Gutsman by picking up rocks and tossing them at Mega Man. He's hidden in some kind of underground mine. Uranus. Neptune is, not surprisingly, a water-themed robot, and his level is fairly reminiscent of the Wave Man and Toadman stages, lots of gushing water, and his weapon of choice is salt water. I suppose that might make robots rust, but, well, here the damage is pretty immediate. Interesting. And lastly, Pluto is found in some kind of underground refinery where the scaffolding clearly wasn't erected under stricter industrial standards because it keeps falling down. As a character, he's pretty much what I always imagined Catman to be, but Capcom never actually included a Catman. Oh well. Like all the other Game Boy games in the series, you only have the option of 4 bosses at a time, and as I've said before, I hate this. I would have much preferred to have had all 8 available from the beginning, but I suppose I'm kinda used to it now. In between the brackets of 4 levels, you get this in-between boss as well, where Terra taunts you, and then... Oh wait, this looks scarily familiar. Yep, it's a new version of the Yellow Devil, everyone's favourite boss. Actually, this one isn't that hard. I ended up beating it without taking any damage, so yeah. Towards the end of the game, in a nice little end of series tribute, you get to revisit all of the Mega Man killers from the last 4 games. We've got Enka, we've got Quint, Punk, and Ballad. Gameplay-wise, Mega Man 5 is much of the same, but I thought the levels had more thought put into their design. The good old Mega Man Game Boy slowdown is back though, as expected. Whoa. Look, there's no denying it. With the Game Boy Mega Man series, it just kept getting better and better. Every game improved on the last, and Mega Man 5 is the best of the bunch. The levels are really well designed, each stage has different enemies and features, the bosses are nice and varied, and Mega Man gets some cool new weapons to play around with too. And Tango. Aww. This one definitely stands the test of time. The following game was suggested by Eric Margons. Robotrek. Not to be confused with Robotech. I was initially a bit confused. Since this game never came out in PAL, it was completely unknown to me, but it was co-created by Quintet, as in ActRaiser and Terranigma Quintet. Knowing that, the game has my immediate attention. The fact that in Japan its title was Slapstick should give you a hint that this isn't a serious tone game. Check out the differences between the American box art and the Japanese one. I'm not sure the localization team really got this game. Anywho, right from the intro I had to chuckle at the cheeky little comedy bites. The planet the game takes place on is called Quint Enix. Get it? And check out the robot making machine. Like many great RPGs, this one starts with you being woken up by your father, whose name is Akihabara? Electric Town? Hey, I've been there. So eventually your little guy gets the ability to create robots and increase their power so that he can battle them. And he keeps them in a ball. Is this sounding kind of familiar? I'd just like to point out that this game was released a full 2 years before the first Pokemon game. Who'd have thunk Game Freak was such plagiarists? The translation of the game is pretty darn terrible. Sometimes the sentences don't even make sense. Localization is an area in which the industry has come a long, long way over the past 20 years. I found Robotrek to be really unhelpful and it doesn't tell you what you're meant to be doing. See, at this point of the game, I was trapped in this cave with a wall that I couldn't break and no escape back to the surface, and the game doesn't give you any hints. Turns out what you need to do is fight enemies until you level up, and then you'll be given the opportunity to combine a rusty drill with a cleaning item, thereby making the drill that can break through the wall. Nothing in the game tells you this is what you're supposed to do, you're just supposed to figure it out for yourself. There is a map screen, but you can only walk on designated paths, so it's not so much an RPG map as a Mario map. So with your little army of robots fighting for you, there's a whole lot of customization you can do, even down to the paint job. You can make these little guys whatever you want them to be, which is really cool. As for the story, in my opinion the most important part of any RPG, it's pretty meh. Aside from the cool concept of little gnomes creating robots for you to fight with, it's all very standard everyday RPG plot 101. I'd like to point out, however, that I didn't play through the whole game. That might have taken me all year. Maybe it gets amazing later on, not sure. As a side note, I'd like to apologise for how long this video took to put out there, but this is the game that's the cause. I just found it really hard to make myself play it. The game isn't terrible, there's some nice original concepts in there, but it's very obscure and unforgiving. I can't imagine how anyone could get through Robotrek without a detailed guide on hand. Look, if you like your RPGs hardcore and old school, you might like it. I was happy to put it away, to be honest, but it certainly has a number of redeeming features, so I'll say it sits. Remember Parodius? That absolutely insane shooter from Konami? Well, believe it or not, there were actually 3 Parodius games on the Super Famicom, but only the first one got ported to the West. This one here, Ultimate Parodius, was the first sequel. It's very much the same kind of game, but it's got a few more bells and whistles. To start with, there's more characters to choose from. Pentaru, Twinbee, the Octopus, and Vic Viper. But now there's also a Flying Baby, Kid Dracula from another Konami series, Goemon, who can now fly in space, a stick figure on a paper aeroplane, an angel pig. It's funny. A flying fish, and oh, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. Anyway, the day-to-day gameplay hasn't changed much, just cranked up to 11. I could be wrong, but it seems to me that in this game there's even more stuff flying all over the place. It's crazy, man. This does result in some pretty chronic slowdown though. I mean, Konami was notorious for slowdown in its Super Nintendo games, and this one is no different. So the big question though, is it as insane as the first game? And I'm delighted to say that yes, it is. Very little in this game makes any sense, which is exactly as it should be. You want some crazy bosses? Well, how about a mermaid with a ship on her head who attacks you with hiragana giggles? Or this. Or how about the Japanese bunny lady? Or does a ballerina panda take your fancy? Love it. There are also quite a number of returning bosses from the previous game, which would be fine if they'd actually changed a bit, but they haven't really. Look, at their hearts, these games are pretty basic shmups, but the joy of playing them is seeing the insane wackiness and hearing the great 16-bit remixes of classical music. If you enjoyed Parodius 1, you'll love Ultimate Parodius. I sure did. Even though it was never released outside of Japan, it stands the test of time. Perhaps Konami could release it on the Virtual Console, it's almost entirely in English anyway. That's all we've got time for now, folks. I'll keep playing the retro games, nothing's gonna stand in my way to... Oh well, I'll see you when I see you. Peace out!